Welcome to Tech Intersect. I'm your host, Tonya Evans, and my life and work exist at the heart of law, business, and technology. Yeah, I've earned a few fancy titles and degrees over the years, but the bottom line is I'm a writer, speaker, teacher, and lifelong learner, and I'm really excited that you've joined me on this journey. So what is Tech Intersect? Well, it's authentic, empowering conversations with really interesting guests who demystify complex topics to prepare you for the future. Because your future is now. And it exists where law, business, and tech intersect. Get ready to listen, learn, and leverage. Let's get started. In this episode of Tech Intersect, I speak with OFF co-founders Herman Marigny IV and Brandon Bailey. OFF is an exciting new company that provides an end-to-end platform for connecting Black digital artists to crypto art collectors. They focus on four main pillars: education, community, amplifying, and economy. Herman is Visitor Services Manager at the National Museum of African American History and Culture in Washington, D.C., former Manager of Technology and Innovation at the Harvey B. Gantt Center for African American Arts and Culture, former Wholesale Credit and Risk Analyst at Wells Fargo, and holds a BS in Finance from American University. Brandon is Director of Real Estate Investments at Kettler, former market analyst at crypto investment research firm Masari, former investment banker at Wells Fargo Securities, and he holds a BA in public policy from the University of Virginia. Very impressive backgrounds at the intersection of finance and art. And I look forward to having this conversation to talk more about their new platform. Now, before we jump into the episode, take a moment to like, share, and comment so that others who would benefit from this content can find it. Also, I invite you to visit advantageevans.com to register for my upcoming free masterclasses, the NFT Law Guide for Creatives and Collectors, and From Cash to Crypto, Preparing to Get In and Win in the New Digital Cash Economy. And while you're there, you can also discover if you might be a good fit for one of my full multi-lesson, multi-module courses to invest in and empower yourself to prepare for the future today. Okay, it's time to listen, learn, and leverage. Let's get started. In this episode of Tech Intersect, I speak with Herman Marigny IV and Brandon Bailey, the amazing co-founders of OFF, a blockchain-based Black arts and culture ecosystem created to liberate the Black imagination through digital art and technology so that the distinctiveness of Black creative expression is embraced and valued for its transformative cultural contributions. They also leverage data and statistics to provide art market analysis for Black crypto artists, and their long-term strategic plan includes reaching and empowering at least 1 million digital artists, digital art collectors, and digital art investors collectively to imagine their culture and ideas in the future, supported by technology that enables ownership and creative control of their own culture. We will talk about all of that in a moment. I'm so intrigued and also inspired, but more of that in a moment. First, welcome Herman and Brandon.
Absolutely, Tanya. I appreciate being here. Thank you so much for the invitation to have us on the podcast.
Thank you. It's been a real pleasure following the trajectory of how you were just moving in the space and how intentional you are in building on multiple platforms. And we will talk about where you have been, like the origins, the reason that you created OFF to begin with, where you are now, and where you are going. But I want to start before we dive into that. I've been asking folks who come onto the podcast, because we're still in the midst of the pandemic. I can't believe I'm still saying this 12 months in, but Herman, we'll start with you, and then Brandon, how are you doing in the midst of all of this? Just like your soul being on this planet, how are you doing?
I appreciate that as a starting question, right? Managing the pandemic for no one has been easy, right? With the loss that has come, as a result of COVID, whether that's actual loss of family members and friends or economic impact that has come. If it's not impacted you, it's impacted someone that you've known or loved, right? So a lot of resilience was necessary. Coming into 2021, a lot of people were feeling hopeful, and then kind of seeing the insurrection take place, it was kind of another mental setback. I will say, as of late, feeling like I've turned a corner, and I know it has something to do with spring. That sun comes out, you get to recharge,
Yes.
the melanin, that energy is kind of coming back around. But then also seeing the excitement kind of unfold in this space, seeing more people become aware of the opportunities that NFTs are presenting.
Mm-hmm.
It's been exciting. It's been inspiring more than anything. And that inspiration has definitely helped me maintain the sense of groundedness.
Yes, that little daylight savings time. We may have lost an hour, but we gained some energy. The sun is energizing. And so thank you for sharing that. Brandon, how are you?
I'm doing okay. These COVID times have, like Herman said, definitely presented some challenges. 2020 was definitely a tough year. I personally lost a family member, and so did my girlfriend. So it was definitely a tough year.
Mm-hmm.
We've just been trying to take it day by day. One thing I think about being in the pandemic is it's kind of given me an opportunity for a lot of self-reflection and kind of a new appreciation for like the small things, the little things, family, the people in your lives, friends, just the small things, honestly. And it's also been a great time just being able to work from home and just being at home, a great opportunity to do a lot more reading and learning of different things, which has been great. Especially working on one-off and having a little bit more of an opportunity to focus on this space has been something that has been great. So, it's definitely been tough, but it's looking up. And so that's one thing I'm appreciative for.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I'm so sorry to hear of the challenges. And you're right. If it hasn't directly impacted a family, and for you it has, it's all around us. There's no person, we're not playing 6 degrees of separation between us and COVID. When I think of my mom's block, for example, she has her home. The 2 homes on either side of her have lost people. She's lost in that block. So when I think of those 5 homes, I think they're like 12 homes on that block in West Philadelphia. And it's just very, very real in such a short period of time. It's like a decade of living and the evolution of living and passing in literally this one specific time. I can imagine that in some respects, maybe you have poured yourself even more into the development of One-Off as being some type of positive outlet in the midst of all of that. Does that resonate with you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. It's definitely been a great kind of positive outlet for me, focusing on the space, working on building out the company, seeing all the great and amazing stories and things that have come out from the different artists and other individuals, creating sort of this new opportunity in the midst of COVID. And yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So let's jump into how this even came to be. So I'm looking at your credentials. Your paper is legit, gentlemen. Paper's legit, right? You spent some time, interestingly, I'm a very both right and left-brained person. So when I started practicing law back in the day, I'm not even going to tell you when, I started at Big Law and I was working all day from can't see to can't see. And then I would leave the law firm and go to the nearest coffee shop to perform. I'm a performance poet, even though I don't know if you all can tell, but back in the day, I was legit as well, and participating in like Def Poetry Jam that was connected to HBO at the time. I was never on HBO, but I was the first runner-up in Philly, and I was in Philadelphia. So Def Poetry Jam and Def Jam Records, they were partnered to amplify both the spoken word artists, but also the singers. And so Music Soul Child was performing in Philadelphia, and I was the opener to the opener to the opener to Music Soul Child. And can't nobody take that away from me.
Nobody. Absolutely.
Let's go. Right. So I definitely understand. And I think early in my career, even though technically I started the early part of my law practice in trust and estates work for high net worth individuals, I was so connected to creators that they trusted me. And my mom's a patent attorney, so I kind of had a leg up in terms of intellectual property. They trusted me to understand the vision that like they're literally giving birth to something and the respect that is required on the creative side. But very quickly, and particularly in this space of non-fungible tokens, we have to take off our creative cap and put on our business and legal hats. And I see a lot of finance and business in your backgrounds. So talk to me about your backgrounds that laid the foundation for you to enter the crypto space and more specifically the crypto art space. We'll start, Herman, with you.
Yeah. First off, kudos to that backstory from you. That is amazing. People who can traverse, the space between technical analysis and creative expression, right? That is being able to kind of communicate effectively across those lines. I've learned recently that is extremely valuable, right? For me personally, all of this kind of started back in undergrad. That's actually where Brandon and I met. We didn't attend the same university, but we were a part of the same program. A program called MLT, Management Leadership for Tomorrow. And it has the very specific intention of recruiting Black and Brown youth and preparing them, kind of grooming them for C-suite level leadership jobs, right? And so it's a pipeline program that kind of goes the distance. It starts as young as high school and takes you all the way to the executive suite of a Fortune 500 company, right? So in that vein of kind of being ambitious, that is the context with which me and Brandon met, right? We were both finance majors. So I was at American University studying finance. And that is where I first came across the conversations around blockchain. The DeFi space was alive and well. Legislation at the time was kind of being passed to legitimize Bitcoin. And that was on the radars of my my finance professors, right? That was my focus. I went in very tunnel vision in undergrad. I had a goal to go in and have my full-time job offer before I graduated, right? Very focused. And so much laser focused, in fact, that I fought off the idea of general electives because I was assigned to take an art general elective. And I eventually ended up taking this class. It was called the African American Experience in Performing Arts. And it absolutely changed my life. Professor Sybil Williams taught me Black history through the lens of theater. And that was the first time I had ever had that much historical context. Told in a very passionate and eloquent way. And it made me appreciate the ability for art to really communicate that message. So much so that I didn't change my major, but I took a job on campus museum. So I was at the front desk of the museum just to kind of be close to the way. It felt familiar. It felt like a second home for me. My business school was my first home, and then the museum was my second home. And that led to an eventual transition that I would make kind of later in my career. But I'm going to kind of pause it right there, let Brandon hop in.
Yeah, definitely. I would say my first job out of college, I worked in investment banking as an analyst in the financial institutions group. And so kind of through that experience, working at a bank, getting a thorough understanding of kind of finance, banking, deal making, how to think about macroeconomics, microeconomics, what kind of drives the stock market, money, a lot of those different concepts, right, that are often talked about when you think about cryptocurrency and sort of how does that fit and like how does this new monetary system kind of fit into the context of what, currently exists. So that job really helped just give me sort of the ability to think more deeply about some of these concepts. And then Herman was actually the first person that ever introduced me to cryptocurrency. And that was around 2016, where he sent me the Bitcoin white paper. And I remember he was telling me about, there's this digital currency, how interesting it is and like decentralized money. And, at the time, it was really hard to, just wrap, like for anyone, it's really hard to wrap your mind kind of around that concept and what it means. And I remember reading the white paper and I was like, I don't fully understand what any of this means, but it sounds really interesting. And I kind of want to learn more and check it out. And so, that's Herman is the one that kind of got me started going down that rabbit hole. And, ever since kind of taking that initial first step, I kind of stuck with it in my own journey. And so in 2017, I got really, really involved into the scene. I was attending meetups. the kind of that whole thing. I even ended up starting a small company with just some other cryptocurrency enthusiasts about like the educating people about this opportunity and what it means, especially for the Black community, because I felt like it was such a huge opportunity, something that was revolutionary, and just wanted to spread the word, right? I mean, it's sort of the same thing with NFTs. Like once you kind of see the vision for what this can become, what it means, the first thing you want to do is start that education process and kind of getting that word of mouth out there to the broader community. And so I had really kind of went down that rabbit hole, focused just more specifically on cryptocurrencies themselves. And I was there for CryptoKitties. I remember the whole thing, which was kind of like, the first ever NFT project, which, it was crazy to thinking about that now and seeing how that space has kind of progressed. But for me, art was not something that I had a huge experience around. So Herman definitely had kind of brought me into that fold. And as I've been digging deeper into NFTs, I've been learning more and more about the art space. Digital goods specifically, I understood it more from the context of like playing video games, So I understand like the value of skins and these kind of digital goods and everything that was happening in things like Fortnite. And I remember playing old games back in the day, like RuneScape, and there were markets for these digital goods back then. There wasn't cryptocurrency, but on eBay, there were huge markets where people were making a living off of buying and selling these digital goods that they earned in game. And so when Herman was telling me about NFTs and kind of what this could mean for artists and the opportunity, I was able to kind of make the connection for myself, just from that experience. And then from there, for me, it's just been kind of putting the finance combined with this opportunity in art, kind of putting the two together. And it's just been an incredible journey between, just being able to blend the two.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned gaming. Gaming, when I think of new technologies and how they break and who participates early on, there are a couple of different industries that are usually at the forefront of new technologies. And gaming is certainly one of them. I wrote this article, a law review article. It was ahead of its time, but now it's popping because I was booed off the stages in the legal academy in some sense, because people were really challenging the technology and they couldn't get past their questions about the technology to see the power and the potential. And we were very much in 2017, 2018, buried in white papers, right? With the things that might come. But isn't that the way innovation always works? That there are a lot of ideas and people are failing forward and things settle down into something that makes sense. But part of that paper, it's titled CryptoKitties, Cryptography and Copyright. So I was focusing on how the technology might be leveraged in order to solve some problems in the copyright space using CryptoKitties as the example, but it really wasn't about CryptoKitties, right? It's just about the power and the potential of the gaming aspect. And I never quite understood the gaming part of CryptoKitties. I can't confirm or deny whether I purchased some to figure out what was, but I remember spending a lot of time around Decentraland and things like that and understanding if someone had purchased a knife or a skin in one place, might they be able to port that into some other platform, which would be really interesting, right? You couldn't do that with the centralized aspects of gaming, but what about decentralized gaming? And I don't know where we are with gaming, but that was certainly the precursor to really see the power and potential in art. And that leads us to our discussion of how you two came together to create OFF. What was the idea? What problems were you interested in solving through this platform? Herman, you want to take that first?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you started to get at something that I learned to love in my job and my career path. So when you are on the cusp of something extremely innovative and how unfamiliar that can be, and a natural human response is we don't like unfamiliar, right?
Fair.
So how do you create an environment that it's comfortable for people, right? How do you make it palatable? How do you make it familiar to people, right? That is something that I learned is extremely important. And the work that I did post-undergrad kind of helped me hone that skill and that ability. Specifically, to Brandon's point, like when you see the potential of it and you can see the positive impact it can have on a community you care about, right? So it's like, I see the innovation, y'all don't see it, peace. It's like the challenge is like, I want all of us to succeed, So I have to have so much patience now and apply my creative ability to see this vision into creative ways I can help you see this vision, right? And so after American, Brandon and I were both in the financial space, right? I was an analyst within the space, but there was a museum that was actually kind of right across the street from my job. And I found myself there continuously, constantly, to the point where, I had that internal conversation with myself of like, you feel something here is calling you, just jump and see where it takes you, right? And I jumped right into a visitor services role at an African-American museum in Charlotte, North Carolina, right? And there, right, I got really immersed in the art space. So these exhibitions that are being mounted, so you're meeting the artists, you're hearing about the intention of the work, but then you're also seeing all the magic that goes on behind the scenes, right? You're meeting the art handlers that come in and make the exhibition come to life, the marketers who have to actually market and promote the content related to it. You're seeing the decisions that are being made behind the scenes by the board on what exhibitions we're bringing in next, what programming is going to supplement it, right? And that all of those things connect the moment that your customers or your visitors kind of come through the door. And those tour guides are the people who are tasked with translating this curatorial concept, this artist's intention to this family reunion, right? To mom and grandmother that's coming in, right? Just looking for an experience that day. And so being in that space for over 3 years really helped me kind of hone that ability to translate, to communicate, and to use art to do that. Now, the thing that transformed and that really became the catalyst for One-Off was there was one exhibition in particular. It was called Welcome to Brook Hill, and it focused on one community in Charlotte, North Carolina called Brook Hill Village that was in the middle of being gentrified, right? And through this photography-based exhibition, we were able to kind of paint a more fuller story about the history of gentrification and connect to urban renewal that impacted a generation before, or redlining that impacted multiple generations before, right? Understanding how this very real set of policies that was implemented in this country in the 30s have had generational impact on our communities, on our families, on the places that created us, that shaped us, right? And how, the systemic inequity that flowed from that was still being real and felt today. And at the same time, it made me aware of people who were doing amazing and innovative work to address some of those systemic inequities, right? The social innovators. Theaster Gates was one of the social innovators who I kind of his work in terms of like him working in the communities in Chicago, turning everyday households into kind of cultural hubs, into kind of cultural anchors where you could embed culture directly into the community, right? And the power for culture to give you a sense of self, a sense of identity, and a sense of purpose, right, towards a specific mission. When I saw that, that work was extremely inspiring, right? I'm like, okay, art has the ability to not only educate you about the past, but it also has the ability to allow you to do creative interventions in the future, right? And so that is really kind of the impetus for One-Off. When I came, because it's funny, life came full circle. Brandon and I were working together. We weren't working together. He had left Charlotte, but then happened to be back in town. And I walked him through the art exhibition, right, to kind of give him that grounding of that historical context of redlining and the impact that it had had. And, he's working in real estate, right? So it makes sense. He's seeing it in his day-to-day work.
Right.
This is also the only guy in 2015, 16 that would listen to me when I was talking about it.
So there's that. Right.
Right. And so it's like that moment kind of happened where I'm like, history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. Right. And known the rhythm of systemic inequity for multiple generations now. And so we also see the vision of where this tech is going to go. Right. So realistically, that rhythm is probably going to find its way within this realm. Right. So how can we create something, leveraging the power of art to kind of act as a creative intervention in this future? Right. And that really at its kind of rawest concept is what One-Off was intended to do.
You love listening to podcasts, but have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? Maybe you want to build a brand, grow your business, or are looking for an excuse to talk about your favorite hobby. Whatever your reason for making a podcast, Buzzsprout is the place to start. Since 2009, Buzzsprout has helped over 300,000 people launch their own podcasts. Buzzsprout walks you step by step through the whole process and will give you powerful tools to start, grow, and monetize your podcast. Ready to get started? Click the link in the show notes to get our free step-by-step guide to starting your podcast today.
We hope you're enjoying this edition of Tech Intersect. Our conversation will continue in a moment, but first, a word on an exciting opportunity.
There's a more cost-effective and time-efficient way to reach your leading-edge learning and earning goals, to put you ahead of the stiff competition in this fast-paced, tech-driven economy. You need skills, credentials, and a fast track to a competitive advantage. You need it now more than ever, and I can help. The Advantage Evans method puts you ahead of the curve with condensed, comprehensive online courses, curated content to leverage your current skills and expertise, live coaching, networking opportunities, and more. Upcoming courses include From Cash to Crypto to help you buy your first Bitcoin, and there are 2 ways to get your advantage. Advantage Evans Encore gives you maximum experience for your total competitive advantage and access for 1 year. It includes a live welcome and modules on terminology, buying and selling, exchanges, mining, earning crypto, trading and investing, and also several of the legal issues you need to know in order to be safe and secure as you enter this space. That includes tax compliance, how to plan for a Bitcoin estate, and securities laws to make sure you avoid any legal unforced errors. Now, Advantage Core gives you the essentials. It's a short course to give you what you want and the support you need to buy your first crypto in as little as 3 weeks, with access to the information and replays for 3 months. And if you're not quite ready for your Advantage and want a sneak peek to try before you buy, then register for a free masterclass where I share my Crypto 101 success checklist and cover current hot topics in crypto. So there truly is something for everyone, including you, to get in on the fast track and learn and earn in the digital economy. Visit AdvantageEvans.com to get started. That's AdvantageEvans.com.
And now, back to the conversation.
That's very powerful. Brandon, your thoughts, what brought you to the space to really commit your life and your work, probably your money, to see the fruition of One-Off?
I think the exhibit that Herman talked about with the redlining was something that really, really moved me. You know, in my working in finance, working in banking, working in real estate, you see a lot of how those kind of systems marginalize or even work against our own community. In banking, you see how credit or the lack of access to credit or capital impacts the Black community. In real estate, I mean, you see it, of course, with gentrification. You see how a lot of it is just like not understanding, like there's a lack of education, or you just see how the system is literally just structured in a way where it almost makes it impossible for you to compete or be able to kind of navigate those challenges. It's really set up in a way for you to kind of almost fail, pretty much just, to fail. And so for me, I had been feeling for quite some time, like, it's great that I'm learning how all of these things work. I feel like I can understand how to sort of navigate these different things and challenges, but that's me. What about my family? What about everyone else? What about my community, my friends, everyone else that I know? And so for some time, I had been struggling with thinking through what are some ways that I can take my understanding and my knowledge of these things, and how can I use it to actually make a real change or a real difference?
Mm-hmm.
And that was also one of the reasons that really got me excited about cryptocurrency. It's this alternative financial system that is more inclusive, that provides more access and opportunity, which was another reason why I was so passionate about it there, and what really, kind of inspired me. And so when Herman talked about this opportunity with NFTs and just thinking about the value of Black creativity,
Yes.
Black creativity just in and of itself being probably the most undervalued asset when you think about Black creativity's influence on our everyday lives. You see it everywhere. You think about everything that's cool, what's hot, what's popular, what's trendy, like that's all coming from Black creatives. And when you look at the data about how much money are Black creatives actually earning from what they're creating, for what they're producing, their cultural contributions to society. It's a huge injustice. It makes absolutely no sense. And then you couple that with the appropriation that's occurring.
Right.
So I saw, the NFTs as this opportunity, especially when you think about the opportunity to earn royalties and what that could mean for wealth generation into perpetuity for the estate, et cetera.
Right.
I really saw it as this opportunity to take my understanding of cryptocurrency and some of these other things and combine it and really push it in this space with NFTs and to hopefully make a change, hopefully do something to give back to the community, help enlighten the community, and really try to make a difference.
That's really powerful. And it's the reason that I'm doing the work that I'm doing as well, because I think it was back in probably wasn't 2017, like 2018. I feel like that has to be, given the timing of everything. Jesse Williams from Grey's Anatomy won, I believe, an Emmy or some award. And that year he gave this epic speech about the misappropriation of Black genius. And he phrased it as gentrifying Black genius. So in the same way that our communities had been gentrified, what that looks like historically on the intellectual property side in general, certainly when I think of patents, probably in the trademark realm too, but focus mostly on patents and also copyrights, and what that translated into. And in what ways could I take a closer look at the technology and figure out how all the things that we complained about in the late 90s, early 2000s, when it's the peer-to-peer technology that we can make a perfect digital copy and send it to 1,000 of our non-friends and not extinguish the original. In what way could we now leverage, basically the same technology, the internet, peer-to-peer technology, and now cryptography in order to flip the script and really level the playing field in a way that we've not been able to experience earlier. And so this idea of protecting Black genius through technology is really, really powerful. So let's talk about how ONE-OFF actually works. So talk to us about the platform, what the services are. I know you're working both on the artist side and also the collector or investor side. My understanding, and tell me your thoughts on it, there are people who are getting in to participate in downstream revenues. They're getting in and they're getting out. And then there are the purists, the collectors. Like I have a Romare beard. Well, I don't want to tell you where I live, but like a Romare beard may not be in this house, right? And so I'm delighted to have it forever, right? But there may have been someone who would purchase something and then flip it, like real estate. And I don't have a particular judgment on it, but I have heard from creators that some prefer to have a relationship with their collectors over the long term. So there's like three things in one, but talk to me about how ONE-OFF works and what the services are. We'll start there. Herman.
So Brandon and I will tag team this. On the website, we lay out the two different prongs that we have. I'll speak to the intention of creating a Black arts and culture ecosystem, right? So early off, I said my work in this arts and cultural space has taught me that artists are present in this community, collectors are present in this community, but then also curators are present, cultural institutions are present, right? It's a very clear what it looks like to have an artist in the NFT space, right? What does it look like to have a curator in the space? What does it mean for a cultural institution, right? These physical buildings that house this ecosystem, this economy, this culture, to have a place on the blockchain. And so a lot of what we were trying to envision with the first exhibition was creating that space, right? And so on one very easy note, that looks like creating onboarding educational resources for folks, right? We started with a very simple document for how to get started as an artist in the crypto space, right? And it was supposed to act as like a overall primer, what an NFT is, but then more importantly, what are the marketplaces? Where can you go to actually mint your NFT? And then more specifically, what are the fee breakdowns, right? What are the primary market fees that you're going to run into? And then what are the secondary market fees that you're going to run into? Because one of the things we know about the traditional art market is that you don't get to participate in your secondary market. And with that, right, with this new technology, with the opportunity for these royalties, how will it impact or change how artists approach creation in this space, right? And then when they're having that thought session, where can they go to do that, right? when we first got into the space and we stared around into it, there are not a lot of spaces for Black artists to exist in this blockchain space, right? And so me understanding the importance of simply having a place to gather, right, made that one of the primary things that One Off was doing. So it's like, we won't only give you the pamphlet to show you how to get into the space, we're leveraging kind of our Discord community or our metaverse community to actually give you a sense of physical space to occupy while you're navigating it, while you're figuring out a place where you can feel comfortable asking questions in a community of like-minded people, right? But ultimately trying to encourage this actual innovation of thought, right, of visionaries. And so the Black Arts District initiative is supposed to be that welcoming. So it is a diverse cohort of artists who've been in the space a while, who've experimented with NFTs, who've experimented with social tokens, right, who are taking in all this space has to offer, and who we're kind of looking to for guidance and kind of case studies, if you will, right? Making this bet of like these folks and the different lanes that they're occupying will be amazing case studies and learning opportunities for the next wave of artists, innovators, and creative entrepreneurs that come through this space to try to figure out what's going to go on there. Right. So one big part of One Off is kind of creating that program where that exists. And again, that's me pulling into my work in a small Black cultural institution, right? Understand one place, like you don't have the benefit of being one thing. It's right. You see all these opportunities that are available. It's like you kind of have to create a platform where you can educate, but then you also have to provide an opportunity for people to showcase. And then you also have to provide the opportunity to actually collect the work itself. And so with that piece of it, I'll transition to Brandon to talk a little bit more about what we're doing on the collection side and building out the database around it.
If you're an engineer or a scientist, you love Formula One, you love cycling, you love learning about how new technologies are changing the world around us, then I thought you may want to listen into my new podcast, the Neil Ashton Podcast. We talk to leading engineers and scientists from around the world, hear about their life stories, hear about new technologies, and hopefully educate you and give you a better sense of how key things like machine learning, artificial intelligence, supercomputing are changing the world around us. If that sounds like it's something you might like, you should come and have a listen.
Yeah, so on the other side of the house, it's really focused on building out the one-off collection. So we're collectors ourselves in the space. So it's a focus on that. And then it's also about building out our research and analytics component, which will ultimately kind of tie into this larger marketplace that we're trying to build out to really help collectors and artists in the space kind of have a place that they can go to get general information about, to be able to discover who are the artists in the space, what does their market look like, just different things like that. So on that side of the house, the one big focus that we really want to create or to kind of provide the opportunity is like, you think about investment. So I'm pulling from my investment background, but you think about investment research or equity research, you have reports, you have data analytics, all of these kind of things that help give you just more information about, what something is, how you can think about it, what's happening, what's the data. And so we're really looking at tracking Black artists' sales to really just say, here's how artists are doing in the space. And it's really about telling that story with data. Right. And we're trying to put that in a format that feels familiar, that is easy to digest and understand, and really kind of instill that confidence in potential collectors to get them to jump on board in a meaningful way. And so what that might look like, just as an example of some of the information that we're pulling, is like, who are the top 10 collectors? What is the top 10 highest sales for this artist? Of their last 5 sales, what does that trend look like? And just kind of painting that picture a little bit. The one thing that we kind of see as being a big problem currently in this space is that collectors don't know where to go to find information. They don't know where to go to find artists. Right. If they find an artist, they don't know what marketplaces they're on. And so we're really just trying to solve for that problem and also just give them the relevant information that they need to find the confidence to start to buy into the market. And so that's really the hope there. And the other thing we kind of want to paint to as well is like there's opportunity costs, right? If you're a person, say you only have $1,000 to spend on something, you could spend it on sneakers, you could spend it on clothes, you can invest in stocks, or you could buy art, for an example. We want to paint the picture to say that buying art might be the best use of that money for the reasons that the benefits that you get from buying something that you can culturally identify with. The fact that when you also buy an artwork, you're helping a person that looks like you. There's an opportunity to build a real relationship and connection with that artist. That's something that you do not get when you just go buy a pair of sneakers or if you buy some stock. So it's a completely different experience and a completely different set of benefits that you also get when you talk about buying an artwork. And then the added bonus that we're really trying to paint for the potential collector is that, hey, these things also have value. And in some cases, they do appreciate in value.
Right.
And so it's really about just kind of putting all of that in kind of one report, one place to help encourage more collectors to come into the space. So that's the really, really big focus right now. And then as far as how we look at our own collection in terms of, flipping versus holding forever, I would say it's kind of a hybrid approach. I think the way that I look at it is we would love to be able to own 2 works of every artist that we potentially buy into. That way we could potentially sell one and then keep one for the permanent collection. And one way that we look at it is if we're able to sell a work for a higher price, then what that does is it gives us capital to basically go back out and buy new works or buy, works at a higher price point. So we look at it as a way to basically recycle some dollars so that we can continue to buy and support artists. But that's our approach. I don't think we feel one way, however people want to do it. I think that that's what's interesting about the space is there's a lot of different approaches you could take. But the best part is that artists are getting royalties no matter what approach. Either way you go about it, you're still helping the artist at the end of the day.
So I hear a lot of Black Wall Street in this story in a way to figure out, because we are not physically sharing a space, how do we replicate that idea in a virtual world? And one certainly would be with the platform that you are building. And so you're curating more broadly, you have your own collection more specifically, you're engaged in education, and you are leveraging data to tell the story of Black artists. I have that right?
Absolutely.
All right, excellent. I'm really excited about the platform. And final question for clarity, is this an actual marketplace so that when people think of the marketplace, the pure marketplace where the buyer seller comes together, they're minting and they are selling, is that part of your experience, even if it's not all, or is there some distinction in the, funny that I'm using the word traditional in the Nifty space, traditional from 7 months ago, is that more alike a pure marketplace or marketplace plus or something different?
Yeah, if we had to simplify it down on the 2 parts, front end, it's more of incubator innovator program. So inviting people from artists to innovators to come in, produce works or produce business models that make sense within this space, right? They bring those art pieces or those ideas to these marketplaces that currently exist, right? We participate in those marketplaces. We're leveraging our database and the analytics that we're getting to make strategic investments, right? And the second half of it, all of that's coming out of the fund, essentially, right? And then the proceeds that we're building help us to fund our incubator and innovator, right? And so it really is kind of like an incubator and an art investment fund kind of combined with each other.
And to add on that, the marketplace that we're referencing for that front end, we're thinking about the ability to mint, but I don't think that that's really going to be the focus, at least initially. But what it'll look like is, you as a user, you'll be able to come to the website, you'll be able to see all of the latest works that have been created by Black artists in the space. There will be an opportunity for new Black artists entering the space to basically provide their Ethereum wallet address and some other information so that they can be included and start to be tracked. Right. But what we really want to be able to do is give you as a collector the ability to filter. So say, I want to see Black female artists that are selling work on maybe this marketplace under this price point, and really just try to provide a lot of specificity,
Mm-hmm.
but really provide that as a tool for collectors to be able to easily follow, identify works that might suit what they're looking for, and make that easy and in one place.
Mm-hmm. Perfect description. Thank you for that. And I think that is very, very clear and so incredibly valuable. It does not exist. And you are creating a model that is amplifying the excellence in the Black community that will ultimately serve a broader community, because Black art is art. Black art is essential. Black art throughout the diaspora needs recognition and needs to be heard and seen. And it is a driving force of culture in this country and around the world. Full stop. But I'm preaching to the converted, so I know you already know that. All right. I have kept you way too long, but this was so fascinating, and I wanted to make sure everybody learned and heard as much as possible on this episode. I will drop additional information in the show notes, but please let people know how they can connect with you and learn more about the platform and the trajectory of ONE-OFF.
The website is a great place to start. It's xx1off.art. You can also follow us on social media on Instagram and Twitter. That is at xx1off. If email is also your preference, front.desk@xx1off.art.
That's an excellent, excellent extension. I love it. .art. Love to see it. All right. Herman, Brandon, it has been an absolute pleasure. I hope this is the first of many interactions and conversations. And obviously, if there's anything that you need, I live in my laptop and on Twitter and soon to be in Discord. Thank you for the invitation. I'm going to get in there and actually earn my keep. So before you kick me off, I'm going to earn my keep. So don't kick me off just yet. Okay.
Absolutely no chance of that. Thank you for having us. It was a pleasure talking with you and sharing your virtual space. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much to Herman and Brandon from ONE-OFF for sharing the vision and for doing the work to discover, amplify, and honor the cultural contributions of Black crypto artists to the world, and to put their crypto where their mouths are to collect and invest in Black crypto art. So what did you think about all of this? What do you think about NFTs generally? Passing fad, here to stay, overhyped? Just the beginning, just right? What ahas and favorite moments did you have listening to this episode? What questions do you have about copyright and licensing and royalties in the NFT space in particular? And what questions do you have about just getting into the collector side, or perhaps creating and minting your own NFT? Let me know. Drop a comment or tweet at Advantage Evans. And please take a moment to like, comment, and share this episode and this podcast with your networks. Follow me on social media and let me know what topics you'd like to hear more of and who you want to hear from. All right, that's all for this episode. Until next time, continue to shine.
Stay in touch with host Tonya Evans via your favorite social media. On Twitter at Tech Intersect, and on Instagram via the handle Tech Intersect. This podcast has been produced by Stephanie Renee for Soul Sanctuary Incorporated.